All right, man. The reception to the video, I thought I was going to get basically crucified way more, but a lot of people actually really presented their opinion, had their own ideas, made good points. I have some notes on the side here that I want to talk about. First, I do want to show you something a little goofy, though. In the YouTube comment system here, I can select auto generated comments, like AI generated comments to reply to people. This is one of the stupidest things I've ever seen. Like, this seems terrible, but I just wanted to show that to you because I thought that was very goofy. But no, I've been able to. I've read all of the comments. Right, this thing has received 4 times more. Uh, I don't want to call it engagement because that sounds gross, but from my normal videos, this thing has received a crazy amount of feedback and opinions, and honestly, that's kind of great. I've been able to actually read through them, consider them, think about the things you guys have to say. Some advice a couple people have already gave to me is I think I did this original video too off the cuff. I didn't really have a structure. I didn't really have um, bullet points I wanted to talk about. I just kind of went, and then ended up being probably at least twice as long as it should have been as I circled back on myself. So I made a little list here. We'll talk about it, and I think that'll be a better way to do something like this going forward. But well, let's just get into it, right? So first and foremost, I do see that there is obviously some anger and frustration about the patch in general, not even necessarily just the Dinar. The content doesn't work, everything was buggy. Some people who logged in early, like I logged in pretty early, and I got 20 on the renown track for the Galagio just because I logged into different characters to check the vaults. I don't know what spaghetti code happened to make that work, but it did. Um, So obviously, people already they did fix the raid buff thing, but people feel behind. They feel the patch is buggy. The Nightfall content isn't great. They removed a lot of titles from it. The scenario is pretty boring. You do it once a week, and it's very time gated to get the stuff you want. So to even kind of get close to a reasonable pace, you do have to do the Nightfall scenario on multiple characters, probably of the same armor or weapon class, to kind of get what you're looking for. Um, Other than that, it's just dailies with very meager cosmetic rewards. Excuse me, a little burpy. So there's definitely some residual anger and frustration about the patch and about the time gating of things like horrific visions, about dastardly duos, about the Dinars themselves. So I think there is definitely some residual resentment just regarding how the patch came out and the lack of really a patch. Like I felt like I logged in and it wasn't really a patch, man. Like there's nothing new, nothing happening, nothing going on, nothing to log in and say, "Oh, looking forward to this." Yeah, I'll look forward to it in a month, right? But let's go down my list of notes and let's kind of talk about stuff. First and foremost, there is a barrier. There is a under what's the right word? A barrier to entry for Mythic Plus for a variety of reasons. One of which is group size, right? You need 20 players. It is designed around 20 players. Group size, raid composition with all the raid buffs. But I think something that really holds Mythic back, especially in the pug scene, is the Mythic lockouts. Um, as someone who would want to pug, who want to try Mythic Raid, who want to try these lockouts and try these things, you basically get one chance a week. People have been trying to kind of skirt this and try to guarantee themselves a Mythic lockout by going around and killing bosses like Rick Reverb or primarily going to kill Cauldron of Carnage first to guarantee their group will at least get a Mythic box, right? And get 2 boss kills. Um, But that is a symptom of the problem, which is the fact that mythic lockouts are kind of bad at this point, right? We've got rid of cross faction stuff. Here, the heroic lockout, you can go to any boss you want and kill it for loot. And the same thing with mythic lockout. I mean, they've even fixed BOE farming to a degree where your character, like you can do it on alts, but your character is locked to a drop from the lieutenant mob. So you can't even just go in and permanently farm with a different mythic lockout BOEs. They fixed that issue. So realistically, especially for people wanting to get into it casually, mythic rating or the mythic lockout, I think, is the next thing that actually really needs to go. And this, I think, benefits everybody. This also benefits raiders as well, because it would allow raiders to ostensibly, while progressing bosses, it would allow them to have someone with a it would allow them to extend their lockout or continue to progress on the boss they want to progress on, but on their off time, also be able to join pugs and get mythic boss kills. This would do, I think, a couple things. If the mythic lockout was removed, not only would raiders who are spending all of their raid time locked to progression on these bosses, not only could you either redo the bosses towards the end of the week with the rest of your guild, right, if depending on your progression, or a couple of them to get loot. This would also, I think, put more mythic raiders, like current mythic raiders, inside the pug scene for mythic raiding, because it would allow them to jump in, jump out, do different bosses, join more experienced groups, join lesser experienced groups. It would really release or it increase the amount of players in that pug scene without actually, like, essentially killing your one chance a week to even get anything from mythic raid. So if you get a bad group, you kill Vexy, you go to Carnage, you can't kill it, your week is over, right? So it allow players to actually progress and play in a very casual scenario, comparatively to how pretty restricted it is right now. So I think the mythic lockout is actually something that can go towards helping that, or alleviate that frustration and just accessibility to the raid as a whole, right? There will still be times where they don't need your class. That might be a problem, yada yada. But I think it would just be way better. Now, next we need to talk about gear acquisition, because this was a very high percentage of people talking about in the comments. Sorry, I'm just like fumbling over myself here. Where one thing I believe, and I've said before, and has been parroted, well, I wouldn't say parroted, but it's been said by other people in the comments, is honestly, people probably spend more time in Mythic Plus, like actual time investment in Mythic Plus, than they do in Mythic Raid, partially because of the Mythic Lockout, but just because it's the only game mode you can keep playing and trying to improve and working towards higher IO, higher numbers. But with this system, there's not really equivalent rewards that people put in time. So the amount of time you put into Mythic Plus, you do not get an equivalent reward compared to the same amount of time if you put it in a Mythic Raid, which honestly is fair. That is a fair critique of it. I do think if you could farm Mythic Plus loot from dungeons, that would be way problematic for a variety of reasons. But I do think that Mythic Plus needs some form of guaranteed loot, comparatively, kind of like how Mythic Raid gets it, right? Because if you Mythic Raid and you do dungeons, not only do you get boss loot and Mythic Plus, you also get double the vault slots worth of value weekly compared to everybody else. So honestly, one of the things I think that could combat this is if you added every week, you know how we use the vault currency for whatchamacallit, for sockets. I think if you added within the 0.5 patch, or honestly I think the 0.5 patch maybe even earlier, Maybe not off the rip, but if you added an item, this is also not original idea by me. If you added an item that allowed you to upgrade your Hero Track Mythic Plus loot to Myth Track by using the Vault currency, it will remove that amount of inability and inaccessibility to mythic loot, especially when sometimes you just get unlucky, right? Sometimes you can just have a vault where no, it's cloaks, it's bracers, it's a bad trinket. Like some of the Mythic Plus trinkets are obviously not as good as the raid trinkets or even as good as other Mythic Plus trinkets. So the ability to actually have a viable way of gearing and progressing your character would be very, very valuable and very, very important. The reason why I would say that this mythic upgrade item should maybe be a bit later in the patch is one thing, especially on progression, that will happen with this system is if you at least leave it for a bit later, players don't feel like the optimal thing to do is to essentially only take that upgrade track item and like keep it or hoard it and not actually interact with the system at all. It would also lead to people basically like holding their loot or holding their stuff a little more to where they're trying to game the system or game their guild or trying to figure out the best way they can get their item, right? So it'll be, I think it would be very degenerate. It would be very I don't think it'd be good for the game if something like that was in early. I think the 0.5 patch would be a good point for it. Um and as well, we know that the tokens are locked to 12. You can only get 12 tokens. So even if you save tokens, you can only save so many for this upgrade type item. And it would allow only Mythic Plus players to guarantee them that level of Myth Track loot, those Mythic trinkets, those things are Mythic weapons, that kind of thing, that they put the time into farm, but couldn't actually get as a drop from the vault. Maybe it should require a certain rating to buy these upgrade items, like maybe 31 or 3200. Maybe we have that 3K achievement, but if you push to 31 or 3150 or 3200, right, you could really open that up and get access to this thing that you could progress on your own without needing a mythic raid team. There is, in terms of gear acquisition, a problem of item power specifically as well, which is brought up a lot in the comments, which is basically raid has the better loot. And it does. Like you are not wrong. That is true. Raid 100% has the best items in the game. And realistically, if you asked, do world first raiders care about the best items being in raid? No. That's not why they're there. That's not what they do. They will use whatever they have. They will get whatever they can get, and they will try to kill the bosses as fast as they can, no matter what. Those items, I mean, they might like getting best in slot items later, but for the upper end and people pushing rank and Hall of Fame and that kind of thing, these items are a means to an end, right? I think that I was perhaps too elitist, honestly, and perhaps too a little gatekeepy. But the problem is I was also I've been in my own bubble, right? Because you always hear upper end players or upper end content creators that you will see, and they will say probably scenes like, "Oh, I don't even want to pug anymore because of how bad it is out there," right? Like you will see people say these kinds of things fairly regularly, and I mean, quite honestly, if you're a better player, it doesn't matter if you have a better item. It doesn't matter if you have the same item as another guy. If you're a better player, you will have better progression, better score. So, quite honestly, locking these kinds of items away from players, like gatekeeping it in this you need to kill the boss kind of system, like I said, benefits me greatly. But it might be actually too much, because if you're better, who fucking cares? You will get what you're gonna earn the stuff. You're gonna get the stuff. You will have it. And I honestly think the reason I was too gatekeepy, but the honest reason why is honestly that I want the items, right? It's not even about other people getting the items. I did say that it feels like you should earn what you get, but realistically what it comes down to is I want the items, right? And then it honestly doesn't matter if other people get the items. It really, really doesn't. If someone gets a myth track house of cards, sure, whatever. If someone doesn't, if someone's a best in slots mythic, sure, whatever. I don't think it matters. I do think there should be some incentive rating. So maybe if you're actually a mythic raider and you kill content, I don't know exactly how they would do the system, but maybe you get these earlier, but still not gatekeep players later from getting these items. Um, because I also wonder if in this kind of system, let's say this week 11, if your guild is Hall of Fame in week 11, you get to buy whatever item you want. But if you're like an AOTC player, you have to wait another 6 weeks to be able to buy an item you want. I don't know if that's a good compromise. The only reason I bring that up is because originally these dinars were supposed to be you able to get anything for everything with no restrictions. And maybe the reason they added these restrictions is based on how early they're actually providing them. So maybe it could be something like you can actually get these items in the heroic track, and then at a certain point after a certain amount of weeks or time or whatever, they upgrade. You can just upgrade them to that myth track without worrying about it, you know? And then that allows players who do Mythic Raid to get that value. It allows everybody to get the items they want, because everybody wants to work towards BIS and their best items and all that kind of stuff, right? So maybe that's a possibility. And then the last thing on gear acquisition I have here is that Mythic Plus has no guaranteed myth track except from the vault. I slightly touched on it, but Raiders, because you can see what items drop from the boss, you can roll the dice until the item drops. Even if it's something like the roulette wheel for One Arm Bandit, you can roll that die until you get the item you want, right? Mythic Plus doesn't have that. It has no guarantee. It is RNG week after week after week. You might not get upgrades. You might get a socket. You might have nothing in the vault for weeks that's valuable to you, right? If you crafted bracers and a cloak, and that's all that's really showing up in your vault, you get a bracer, a cloak, and like a really bad trinket that's not even worth taking, then it feels bad. So because Mythic Plus players do put a lot of time in, but they have no guarantee towards items they would want, I think that is definitely somewhat problematic based on the amount of time people actually spend. Like, time is effort, right? And then to the last point, which is honestly fair. A lot of these, I've kind of taken the comments and tried to kind of condense them and tried to almost like community manager be like, well, what are players talking about? What do they really want? What are these feelings that they're having? Like, what can we do to help this kind of thing, right? And honestly, it boils down to the fact that Blizzard does not give attention to the other parts of the game compared to Raid. They just don't. They just don't. Raid gets the best loot. It gets the most balancing attention. It is the primo content. Everything is focused around it. The release cadence is focused around it. You know? One thing people really don't like talking, or really don't like, is if you're a Mythic Raider. I mean, I don't mind it because I'm just kind of used to it, and I kind of just like playing the game. But one thing, so like Tettles has brought up, is he doesn't want to spend 60 hours in Mythic Plus for the first week of the patch just because he needs to farm out every single item at 655 at that hero track level to save as many crests as possible for the upcoming progression, right? But not only that, you have all this time you have to invest into it. Then you have to prep for Mythic Raid. Then you have to get the right item. Like, there's a lot you have to do. So Raid giving the best items, the best loot, the best balance, like Mythic Plus balance has always been bad. It's never been Mythic Plus balance outside of, I think, Season 3 or when AUG was released has never been bad enough that you can't play what you want to play and not achieve things like certain IO thresholds or titles or that kind of thing. However, community perception will always be problematic to that point, to where you can play your favorite class, but if you want to progress on your favorite class and your favorite spec, it's going to take you 4 to 5 times the time of everyone else playing the meta stuff, because that's just how it works. Like, no matter what I do, an Unholy DK is probably going to do 15 to 20% more than my character in a Mythic Plus dungeon. Just if they're good, they will do that much more damage. There is nothing I can do as a player that can change that fact. And that leads into the balance and time invested into Mythic Plus compared to the balance and time investment that they put into balancing the raid, right? So I can understand why Mythic Plus players or PvPers or just a lot of the player base in general, honestly, not really happy with not only Mythic Raiders because we're on our high horse, but also because not only are we getting our cake, we're eating it too. And everybody else, like in Codename Kids Next Door, has to watch. Um, but that's kind of what I've seen. And as far as my opinions from the original video, which were a little less filtered, a little more biased, and honestly, my opinions were definitely more caged in, because when I look at Mythic Raid, I look at these bosses, I see what we're doing, I see that shit is easy, right? It's not the same for everybody else, right? And that's not me trying to toot my own horn or anything like that. It is simply, if the game is enjoyable for more people, it's better for everybody, right? So um the anger, the frustration, like I said, I received, I think, 45 different comments on this video, with less than half the viewership of other videos within a day. This is a very controversial topic. This is something that people are very passionate about, and understandably passionate about. So I do at least at the end of this, or this is the end of the video, basically. Need to at least like thank you guys for not completely crucifying me in the comments for having my elitist takes and ideas, because that's just what they are. But actually providing decent comments, decent feedback, having a actual back and forth kind of with me about this, because it takes two to tango, right? I can only really know me and really know my ideas and struggles and things like that. So I don't fully know or understand what a lot of the player base goes through, because I'm fairly insulated on my opinions on these things because of just where I am and what I'm doing, right? So I do appreciate the time a lot of people have taken to simply reply, to say how they feel about things. Some people agreed with me, some people didn't. But I think there's a better middle ground here, for sure. I do think, I've always thought that even though I'm a Mythic Raider, Mythic Plus is technically my main game mode based on the sheer amount of time I spend in Mythic Plus compared to Raid. But I think that actually, like I mentioned before, the Mythic lockout, that easing up and allowing players to put any side time they have into that activity. Let's say they get in, they kill Vexy, but they don't have time to kill Carnage. Well, if they have a little extra time on like a Thursday, now they can. I think losing the Mythic lockout would go a lot, or would do a lot for the general player base as a whole. But I also agree that Mythic Plus players generally, while they get made fun of a lot, and while like Mythic Raiders make fun of them a lot, uh, they do invest a lot of time into the game, right? And they do deserve something, right? I think the Mythic Plus Dinar vendor could be something. The just not gatekeeping items at all. Maybe gatekeeping items. Maybe having items be slightly time gated compared to people doing mythic raid. So like, let's say everybody gets the dinars, but you can only spend, but the bosses that you kill drop the upgrade token for the item, and everybody just gets a cup, and everybody just gets that upgrade token, right? Um, or there's a quest you can complete where you can pick which boss items you want. Like, I want a one-armed bandit upgrade token. Like, let's say you get 3 dinars, 3 quests. I want a one-armed bandit upgrade token, a Mugsy upgrade token, and a Gallywix upgrade token, right? And then you can do those, you can do those, complete those quests, and upgrade those items. And maybe the requirements would be something like, for Mythic Raiders, kill the boss once and it finishes. Maybe if they want to time gate it for heroic and LFR, maybe I don't like the Fearlath like system where the higher difficulty you do, the higher chance or the more progression you get towards it. But maybe it could be like, hey, after like 6 weeks, if you're at least killing this boss on heroic that you've decided to do, or like maybe 4, maybe 5, I don't know the exact time. But it's like, hey, after an X amount of time, X amount of weeks of killing this boss on the heroic difficulty, you can get the mythic upgrade item. So the people who are killing it on mythic still get their value. They get the items early. They get their progression and their bad luck protection. But the rest of the player base still is allowed to get those items that they want, because regardless, like, though it is true, and people in the comments here also agreed that it is true, that just having these items doesn't do anything, right? You actually have to be good enough to get the value out of them, to get the high ISO score, to get the mythic boss kills. It doesn't take that away from anybody that puts that time and effort in. All it really does is it allows these players to eventually get what they want. So that's kind of all I had like set up over here. So I'm gonna shut this down, put the next video up. I don't know if I'm going to do another response to the whole Dinar thing, because I don't just kind of want to keep farming it. But if there's enough discussion and enough good ideas, I might. I don't want to never say never, but once again, thank you for the time you've spent to at least inform me of your own field of view, right? Because all I can see is here. So having other opinions makes me more knowledgeable on the overall picture, right? But yeah, anyway, I'm going to cut the video. Thank you for watching, and bye-bye.